Those are the pyramids. Those two things up there. All the famous buildings from foreign countries have their replicas here. That's why it's called the Park of a Thousand Lands. With the train, if you want to go somewhere, you just climb aboard and go. Chengdu, Shanghai, Guangzhou, you can go anywhere. 5 lakes, 4 seas. From here, you can travel to the 4 corners of the earth. Here, we're open towards all directions.
To go there, to see yourself there, in a place where you are not. Who has never dreamed of being both here and elsewhere at the same time? Like looking into a mirror which doesn't reflect back the same image, which doesn't tell the same story. So what if we could explore the world through its copy?
The place I grew up is right there. Before, there were only fields here. I'm the warden of the tower. This tower is a bit lopsided. It's not totally straight. One time, they started to dismantle it, piece by piece. But the neighbors fought to keep it, so they had to put it back together again. I see it every day, and I don't find it at all beautiful. Those who see it for the first time think it is, but I don't think it's interesting. It's almost like being abroad here.
Here we have a 108-meter-high tower. It looks very similar to the Eiffel Tower in France. It was constructed to about 1/3 of the size. We'll now do a tour so I can briefly introduce you to Sky City. Sky City now has almost 10,000 homes, which started being constructed in 2002.
Where to now?
Turn on to the Champs-Élysées. Let's go see the show apartment. You feel like you're living in utopia. That's right. You feel very quiet and peaceful. Let's go see the dining room.
What's this? What's this? A dining table.
And what's this? A fork.
Knife.
Right, a knife.
Fork.
There exist replicas, twinned towns spread around in several places in the world. Fragments of cities, monuments, or totems which reflect others. Both everywhere and nowhere. As if, in some way, the 4 corners of the earth had retreated to one and the same place.
China's not the first to copy another country's architecture, but they broke every law of physics. As China opened up, it set off this massive urbanization, the likes of which have never before been seen in history. It gave rise to these totally identical, anonymous high-rises, basically indistinguishable one from the next. And so real estate developers started casting about to figure out how would they distinguish what it was that they were building. And what was interesting is that they hired architects from the respective country to design each one of those towns. A little over 10 years ago, I came across something called the One City, Nine Towns project in Shanghai to build 10 satellite cities, each in the architectural style of a different European country. So there was going to be a German town, a British town, a Spanish town, Italian town, a Dutch town. And so that set me on the quest to understand who was building these copycat architecture? Why? To what end? Who lived there? It's virtually possible to see the world without ever leaving Shanghai. You can spend the morning in Holland Village, you can spend the afternoon in Germantown, then your way back and still be in the center of town in order to have some good xiaolongbao before the day is over. It's like getting the world delivered to you, to your doorstep. China takes its name, the Middle Kingdom, from this pre-modern idea that it is at the center of the world. But China has more recently transformed itself into the center that contains the world. Some people have attributed China's copycat architecture binge to self-colonialization, China's way of celebrating the West. But imitation isn't always a sign of flattery. I would argue that by replicating Paris, China isn't celebrating France, China is celebrating China's achievements, China's new debut on the world stage. I do think that different countries and cultures copy for different reasons. Asia, the Middle East, Africa, when you begin looking into it, just about every country is having its own love affair with copycats. There seems to be, something in our DNA that draws us towards duplicating.
I'm Father Stanislaus Skuza, rector of the Basilica. For us, it's a great joy to receive you here in the sanctuary, the Basilica of Our Lady of Peace of Yamoussoukro, Ivory Coast. Its architect, Pierre Fakouri, is of Lebanese origin, but he was born in Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
President Houphouët-Boigny asked him to seek inspiration in St. Peter's in Rome.
Here's the signature stained glass. If you look closer, the man with his hands clasped just below Jesus is President Félix Houphouët-Boigny. It took 3 years to construct the basilica. As soon as they started, they worked day and night. President Houphouët didn't want people to know how much it had cost. He said we shouldn't count what we give to God. He also said, if I had more money, I'd have made it even more beautiful. In all, there are about 5,000 tones of color. And in the center, there's a copy of the statue you can see at the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome. But it's a copy in reverse. In Rome, the Virgin Mary is saluting with her left hand. Here she uses her right hand, because in Africa, it's not good to greet someone with the left hand. That's why all this was readapted. We have 12 columns like this. This one's hollow. There are 4 elevators in the basilica. This way, please. Here we have a comparison between St. Peter's Basilica in Rome and the Basilica in Yamoussoukro. St. Peter's in Rome is lower. The Basilica of Yamoussoukro is the tallest church in the world. And it has the world's largest dome, too. It's even in the Guinness Book of Records.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us poor sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Holy Mary, Mother of God, the Lord is with you. You are blessed among all women, and Jesus, the fruit of your womb, is also blessed. Amen. There may be similarities on the architectural side, but when I enter the Basilica of Our Lady of Peace, I don't feel like I'm in St. Peter's in Rome, because the Basilica has a different story. Each place of worship is influenced by the way each people expresses its culture. The Basilica was criticized at first because it was felt that a country like Ivory Coast couldn't afford it, given the cost of constructing such a building. People said that Africans needed things like food, to eat their fill, to meet their basic material needs, rather than dreaming of building a work of art of such magnitude. Most of the criticism came from outside, notably from European countries. I found all that somewhat unfounded, because back when the Palace of Versailles was constructed, I don't think all French people were eating their fill.
When Ivory Coast became independent in 1960 and left the colonial regime, President Houphouët-Boigny wanted to leave his trace in architecture. Architecture is a good way to mark history. Just think of Louis XIV with Versailles, or closer to our time, François Mitterrand. People remember the Pyramid of the Louvre and all the other things he built. I think President Houphouët-Boigny must have had a vision to show what an African can do and also to project himself into the future with a new city turned toward the 21st century. Africa is the cradle of mankind. So I think that the reconciliation of all peoples will take place on African soil. And if Christianity comes into trouble, it has a place to retreat to, right here, right now.
This is the Pope's house. It was built to receive the Pope and his aides. And if someone is sent by the Pope as his envoy, he has the right to stay in the Pope's room too. The Pope's bedroom? Quite a shock, huh? When he came here, this is where he stayed. I'm of Polish origin. I spent 24 years in Côte d'Ivoire. I arrived there in October 1993. After I dropped my luggage at the Basilica, I went traveling for 2 months in the north of the Ivory Coast, first near Korhogo, then to Napier, because I wanted to get to know Africa. Because the situation in the villages isn't the same. Plus, I also wanted to get used to being with African people. Clothes like this are gifts that people have offered me. I bought this one, but I have others that I received as gifts. People are happy when I wear their gifts.
In 2001, I was approached by the Shanghai Planning Authority, and they really wanted to build a specifically English district within the city. So I asked them what they really meant by English style, and I didn't really get a clear answer, but my impression was that they wanted to imitate something very English. Because China is so far away from everywhere else, and many, many people here never will have the chance to travel anywhere else, this is a substitute. I have to say, when I discovered that the architecture of Thames Town was a pure imitation of many buildings around Bristol and different parts of England, I felt ashamed to be. I wasn't connected with it directly, but you know, it was my city plan. It goes against everything that I believe in. I do not honestly believe we should be copying English or French or any other style and supplanting that into another country. But now, 10 years later, I look at it and I see people using it and I think, well, does it really matter that much? So We can hear the sound of children running by, which is nice. Sitting here in a small square with children playing behind me and people going in and out of their homes and going to the shops and schools or whatever, it does seem like some kind of community. What I really enjoy about that is just watching people use the place. Forget the architecture. Actually, if you asked any of these people about the architecture, they probably wouldn't have a thought about it. This is a real place to people. I recognize the reality that I'm looking at. I can see the difference between reality. There is actually no unreality here. It's all real, but some of it's real fake. I think walking around in a place like this is rather like a dream sequence. When you have a dream, the images in your head are never quite 100% real, are they? Even the colors. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, dreams have no edges to them. They are moving and changing pictures, made up of parts of experience.
The first doorway is ready, but we're not sure it fits the standard.
Is the interior design finished?
Almost. I'll open the door and you can see for yourself.
Okay.
This is one of the locations of my bilingual kindergarten. As a mother of two, I stress the importance of children's education. The fishing net is our ceiling decoration. As we mainly provide bilingual education, we want decoration around international themes. We plan to hang different countries' flags on the net.
The biggest concern when building a kindergarten is the children's safety. If you need any more help from Sky City Council, feel free to contact me.
Thank you. How about going to play at your uncle's later on? Let's see who's the fastest. Be careful. When we get a kite, we can come back here to fly it, okay? Careful, you'll break your sword. When I was at university, the company started building the site. Once I got here, I was attracted by French architecture and its Eiffel Tower. It was then I decided to buy my new home here. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I got divorced last year. But I fought for my children's custody because I think that children need to have a good education. Lots of Chinese citizens have a traditional mindset that I don't really agree with, notably lifestyle and relationships with others. I don't want my kids to be like that. I hope one day they grab a backpack and travel around the world and live their lives. For me, that's the meaning of human existence. It's not important to us residents that the Eiffel Tower or the Champs-Élysées Avenue aren't real. What's more important is that there's a tower that represents the soul of our city. For me, architecture doesn't influence people, but people can influence architecture. This place looks like Paris, but with the people here and their customs, it's nothing like Paris.
The kind of geography I work on is called cultural geography. That means I'm not studying an objective world that we might want to know as precisely as possible. My research focuses more on geography of the imagination. How we apprehend the world, how we dream about it, how we have nightmares about it sometimes. Cultural geography, as I see it, is that the world is partly the product of our imagination. There used to be Chinese theme parks at world fairs, both in Europe and in the United States. Between 1867, the first World Fair in Paris, and 1915 to the 1930s in the US, there were often Chinatowns. We acknowledge our own right to make replicas. Many were built in Europe and still are being built. It seems quite natural to us. But when others start building replicas, and notably those of our own European cities and landscapes, we dare to think that they're going too far. These replicas force us to question the world differently and to accept the idea that places can exist on different levels. What defines a replica is that it's both here and elsewhere. Replicas refer to different, remote places, or even to some places that do not exist. Or they exist only in our imagination. But existing in our imagination means they do exist. Building fictitious places around us is an essential part of living our lives in this world. Even architecture itself is somehow about living in another version of the world.
The Taj Mahal. My brother had it built out of love for his wife, because he loved his wife so much. He started the construction after his wife's death. She's buried in there, and he's prepared a tomb for himself. For the moment, it's unfinished. There's still some stone blocks to add. He's thinking about it, but has no income anymore.
Have a look at this. It's the Taj Mahal. Here's another picture of it. When my wife realized she could never have children, she said to me, "After my death, no one will remember me." I told her, "If you die before me, I'll build you a mausoleum so that everyone will remember you for years." I can't build it the same as the real one and bring over perfectly cut stone blocks. I can't make mosaics. We don't have craftsmen like that. Look, the plaster we use breaks off after a few days. If we could put stone blocks, it would survive a long time. It wouldn't degrade and fall. Now, my aim is for it to survive 100 to 150 years, no more. Any longer than that will be a bonus.
उसका यहाँ क्रॉस नहीं है गाड़ी का ला भाई अरे रे
This marble is too expensive. Like this.
Upright?
Yes, like this, upright. It should be 2 meters long,
I see.
and inside we'll put some earth to make the tomb.
And over it?
Over it, nothing. We'll fill it with earth.
It'll stay like that?
It's more for the lower part. We'll leave that empty, so the tomb is ready.
All right.
I know very well that Shah Jahan was an emperor. And his wife was his empress. I can't dress like him. I can't spend like him. But I copied him. I made a copy for myself. Because I love my wife the same way he did. This is no Sheesh Mahal or Taj Mahal. It's a memory of love, a palace of love. It's my dearest love who sleeps here peacefully. From nature, my flower was brought here. I hope that once it's finished, I won't live another day. When I ask Allah to let me live, it's only until the work is complete.
यूं ही पहलू में बैठे रहो यूं ही पहलू में बैठे रहो आज जाने की
Wait, come this way a bit. Okay, that's good. Get closer now. Yes, great. Now he looks very happy. I'm a photographer and I mainly take wedding photos. I've been doing this job for 13 years. I started when I was 16. I've taken wedding photos for more than 2,000 couples. You'll get married in July, right? Will the wedding be at home or in a hotel?
At home. It'll last 3 days.
3 days?
Yes.
You couldn't have a 3-day wedding celebration in a hotel. It's much too long for a hotel.
I've never been on that bridge. I've never even seen photos of it. But I've seen many similar bridges. Does it look like Shanghai's Garden Bridge?
No. Like London's Tower Bridge, only smaller. But they look alike.
Do they look the same?
Shanghai's Garden Bridge is made of steel.
And is Tower Bridge made of wood?
You change your mind?
Was the bridge built specifically for taking pictures?
That wasn't the intention. No one had planned for so many people to come to have their pictures taken here. A lot of couples have their wedding photos taken there. Then they can pretend they were married in London.
What's your shoe size?
Just try it. I bought this in Dubai, especially for her. It's very light. Can she try it on?
Okay, I'll try it.
An illusion. Bride, hold your tummy in and raise your chin. Groom, get closer to her. Okay, hug. Close your eyes and smile. Yes, good, good. Okay, groom, kiss your bride. 3, 2, 1, kiss her. What are you thinking? You freezing? Get rid of the umbrella.
好，帅哥，你离开老婆一点，帅哥，离开老婆一点。小时候我是出生在
I was born in the countryside, in one of China's poorest regions. In the world I grew up in,
农村。其实，在我们那个
we don't have the concept of taking photos.
概念的，
That's for the wealthy.
前人的东西。所以
It's a kind of luxury. I only have one photo of me before I was 16.
之前只是纯粹以为
Before, I just took photos without really thinking about them. But then I realized each photo has its own emotion and story,
然后
because every person is unique.
觉得这个桥它还有一
This bridge plays an important role.
帮助很多年
It makes the dreams of a lot of young people come true.
希望他们的
They'd love to travel to places to take photos,
旅行
but they have limited
有
means.
很多条件实现不了。然后呢，在
Here,
这里
they get a similar thing without having to travel too
拍
far.
出那种效果。很多人称它为叫塔影桥，
Lots of people call it the Mirror Bridge because it mirrors the famous bridge in London.
所以呢，
So maybe Mirror Bridge means it reflects the bridge in London.
是伦敦桥的一个影子。其实，
In fact, taking photos near our Tower Bridge is like taking photos of memories. Memories of a travel or a dream that never
没有
happened.
实现的一个旅行，一个梦想。
If we want to see Venice, New York, or the pyramids, it's because we have already seen them somewhere. In an etching, a painting, in a film, we have seen them in representation before seeing them for real. I don't think there's any such thing as an original city, a genuinely primeval city that existed prior to replicas or representations and which could stand apart from a replica. I don't think a more genuine world exists, a world without replicas. Replicas expose the fact that everywhere we somehow live inside dreams, inside copies, inside representations. We shouldn't delude ourselves by thinking our world is authentic.
There's a big problem. We're missing the Chinese flag.
Sky City was designed by a French designer based on French culture. We Chinese welcome this culture from the bottom of our hearts. It reflects the harmonious integration of Chinese and Western cultures. This city is a projection of the new direction for the 21st century, that of globalization. In my opinion, culture isn't defined by country or nationality. Culture belongs to the citizens of the world. The Eiffel Tower can belong to China, and the Great Wall can belong to France. The pyramids belong to all of mankind. As a philosopher, I study the theory of parallel worlds. Parallel worlds are actually related to Tai Chi balls. To put it in simpler terms, there could be a real world and a fake world. Real or fake. You're sitting there, and that's real. But philosophically speaking, I can also say you're fake. Why is that? Breath, spirit, body. Is that really you?
Mirage or reality? The replica takes root in the landscape and ends up becoming an original. It would like to have its own story, to survive down the centuries, to finally become something else, to see itself as another, and to better become its own self.
Hello, delegations. Welcome to all the delegations. I'll just cut through here. Today we're preparing a great national pilgrimage to celebrate the extraordinary Jubilee of Mercy. We've taken steps to accommodate 120,000 people. I'm starting to feel happy because I see lots of buses already parked. So this is just the start of the pilgrims' arrivals. The first time I saw the basilica, I was barely able to believe such a thing could exist. With time, the basilica has found a place in the hearts of the Ivorian people. It has become something in which they can trace their identity. I've grown attached to the basilica, attached to it in a certain way by force of circumstances.
At first, I was careful not to be a Pole in Ivory Coast. Now, I feel like I'm myself. I am the way I am. I wouldn't say I'm an Ivorian, but rather Ivorized in a certain way.
As soon as I open my mouth or make certain gestures, people are surprised because they're not used to seeing a white man behave like a black man. Sometimes people say I'm a fake white. These days, I don't have to be careful. At first, I was careful not to impose anything from my own background. Now, I use this background to influence the people around me in a positive way.
खुशबू जैसी उसने कुछ कहा और मैंने कुछ सुना संवर गई जिंदगी जब से वो मेरा हुआ फिर मेरी हो गई दुनिया की हर एक खुशी आया वो दिल में मेरे हर ख्याल